If you removed all your reward systems and behavior management strategies from your classroom and instead focused on this one simple thing, the behavior in your room would change overnight. Because behavior management doesn't have to be this incredibly complex thing that sucks up all your time. Instead, it should be used to free up countless hours of valuable teaching and learning. And it's crazy because this one thing is so simple that it's almost silly to speak about, but so many teachers glaze over it, including me. The amount of times that I get to the end of the day and the penny drops and I realize that I forgot to do this one thing, I could kick myself. And really, I've only got myself to blame when the behaviors in my room don't change. But before I get to that, I'm gonna need a bowl of ice cream. And if you're anything like this guy, you're gonna take a bite and your head is gonna feel like it's gonna explode. Cold things are no good. But hey, don't worry about it. Eat something hot or just push it to the other side of the mouth. You brush twice a day anyway, so it'll sort itself out. Then a week later, it's real hot and you think we should be okay. But bam, and you say to yourself, I'll book the dentist. But like deep down, you know you're actually not gonna do it. Something else always comes up. Eventually the pain gets worse and worse and you've put the dentist off for too long, so it's now time to bite the bullet and give him a call because it's becoming unbearable now. And you get there and he asks how the chompers are and you lie and you tell him you floss every single day and there's a little bit of pain at the back but nothing major. You open, he gasps and he pulls the tooth. And this is behavior management. We think that the problems and the pain are so minuscule that they'll just go away on their own. But if there is a glaring problem in the classroom, you need to address it. And it seems so obvious, right? But think about how many times we just let that one thing slide, or we don't and we address it and say, hey, we'll come back to that, we'll talk about that later. But then something else comes up and we forget because it feels so minor, only to remember later and think, damn, but then it's too late. Sometimes we're right, behaviors can be very minor. But if there's that one pain and you never address it, it's going to become far worse than you ever thought it would because students start to understand what's accepted and more cavities are going to start to grow. So this is the key: follow up and follow through. My light bulb moment came when I had this one student who would talk to anybody he sat next to. It didn't matter who it was, he would find something to talk about. And he wasn't malicious, he was just chatty, but we still can't accept that. If I'm teaching, they listen. Simple. So I'll move him to another spot. Then the next day comes, same thing. He sits, he chats, I move him. Next day, same, like clockwork. And this became the dance. He knew what would happen just as I would. There was this glaring pain in the room and honestly, I thought I was addressing it. Until one colleague pulled me aside and said, hey, you do this every day, but nothing changes. Because in reality, I was brushing a rotten tooth and the problem needed to be addressed properly. So the next day before the lesson started, I pulled him aside and had a quick chat with him. And I asked him, this happens every single day, how come? And he voiced his reasons, but I explained to him why it's inappropriate and that while he's talking while I'm teaching, everybody misses the message and we can't have that. So today, I want you to make a good choice. Either sit somewhere and don't speak to the people around you, or stay focused and on the learning. So I sent him off and shock, he started to chat because he had built a habit of doing it. But I didn't move him this time. Instead, I asked him if he remembered the conversation that we had before. He remembered, he didn't care, so we continued to chat and I moved him. But this time I said to him, we're gonna have a quick conversation about this after the lesson. Fast forward, lesson's over, bell rings. The class stands up to go to recess and so does he. Because that's what he would do every single day. There was never a consequence. I thought that moving him was the consequence and he thought that moving him was the consequence, but he didn't care because he got to chat with somebody else. But this time I kept him in with me. So I stopped him and asked him to sit on the floor and I put a 3-minute timer on the board. Doesn't need to be long, but 3 minutes is a long time when it's on the board and you have to watch it tick by. So we chatted and it's just a restorative conversation. I explained to him again why it's inappropriate and what he needs to change next time. The next day, I remind him again, remember yesterday? And there are immediate changes. He knew what was expected because it was explicitly told, and he knew what would happen if he didn't meet those expectations. If the behavior didn't change, then it's as simple as restating the consequence and following through with it again. Trust me, they will get the point. But there's a very important key to this if you want the positive behavior to continue, and you also want to build incredibly strong relationships with your kids. Follow-up doesn't have to be negative. In fact, it should be happening far more often in a positive light. So the second that I see him making the right choices, I stop everything and I call him out and I tell him how impressed I am with the choices that he's making. And then before he leaves for a break, I pull him aside again for a quick chat and I tell him how excellent he's been and how happy I am with his improvements. And it's that simple. If you are consistently following up and following through with your expectation, your behaviors will change incredibly quickly. And just like your teeth, there are always going to be little problems that arise. But you know what to do this time. Even if it's something minor and innocent, like one little girl that just has to get her answer out, so she calls it out every time. Or one small group of students that are late to lines every single day. Whatever it is, address the problem fast and fix the problem before the behaviors start to add up and you're left with nothing but gums. Behavior management can be as simple as this, although it does take very high expectations to make sure that every day runs as smooth as possible, and these minor behaviors are your biggest problems in the classroom. So if you want a way that you can set your class up for a successful year, click this video right here.